Plaza, your complete medical laboratory solution. Call 949-7331. And Savannah Pharmacy in Countryside Shopping Village. Convenient opening hours, including Sundays and holidays.
Oh, I think they're doing a great job. A lot of them are.
Good afternoon, Dwayne. How are you?
Not too bad, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Radio Cayman's Talk Today with Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
But I do have some questions.
There are more questions than answers.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today. If you're ready to talk, we're willing to listen.
Well, I really enjoy this program today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
May God bless every person.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today, the Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program. We ask our listeners to avoid statements or comments which are abusive, derogatory, malicious, or defamatory. Do not use any indecent language or make any statement which is false or misleading. Email talktoday@candw.ky or call 1-800-534-8255.
courtesy of Flow.
Cayman's #1 network that connects you to your world like never before.
Let your voice be heard. Once again, here's your host, Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Afternoon and welcome. And thanks for joining us as we invite you to be a part of the discussion. We are certainly mindful that we live on an island. We're certainly blessed. It is a beautiful place, and we are committed, just like our ancestors, to be good stewards, to make provision, to ensure that the land in which our children inherit is as good, if not better, than what we found it. Well, I'm honored to have in the studio Miss Jennifer Aaron together with Miss Gina Eubanks joining us. And, you know, when I look back at our parents, our grandparents, and you know, the days of the Iron Men and the wooden ships, they were probably the first to say that it was their wives, their mothers, their sisters, their aunts, the women in their lives that were the stalwarts. They were the ones who did the heavy lifting and made everything happen. For them, they were on an adventure at sea. So there's women like you who epitomize and continue to build us up. So good afternoon, welcome, thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, thanks for having us on today.
Always a pleasure. Now, Miss Gino, you know, if I think when we think of environmental champion, what do you think of you? You know, it's unfortunately for some, you know, it's tall order, but thankful for someone of your stature. You carry the weight easily on your shoulders.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think we're very, very lucky to have people like Gina and her entire team actually at the Department of Environment who are so committed to the work that they do. We're very blessed.
Yeah, and as we see more and more of the sort of the continuing discussion, I don't even want to call it a debate, you know, the discussion. We've seen leaders, whether they're political elected leaders on the world stage, whether they're champions in our small communities. Sometimes it's just the actions within our schools, that individual effort. Kind of harking back to what I thought was the ethos, hopefully still is, but certainly was the ethos in Cayman, where the coconut husk, for instance, the coconut was everything. It exhibited and exemplified that one thing can be many things, and there's no need to be wasteful. There's actually, you know, waste not, want not sort of mentality. Small efforts can have a meaningful impact, but then there are those of us who are perhaps less than, you know, considerate. Now, when I saw the first thing at COP26, I go, the Commissioner of Police is going somewhere? That's teasing. So maybe as we get into the discussion of climate change, of environmental sustainability, of international treaties and like, Jen, maybe you can set the stage for us and help us appreciate it.
Sure. Well, again, thank you for having us on this afternoon. And yeah, one of the topics that we were hoping to talk about today is climate change, but particularly because COP26 is happening this week and next week. So COP actually stands for Conference of Parties.
Conference of Parties.
Doesn't actually have anything to do directly or doesn't relate to climate change in its title, but it's the Conference of Parties, and this is the 26th meeting of the group, and it's where the world leaders, the global leaders, come together to tackle what is truly a global problem around climate change, and it's a global problem that requires global action and agreement and accord. And so this meeting, which is occurring in Glasgow, is a big meeting for the world because it's where the countries are coming back to report on their progress against the Paris Agreement, which was really, I think, Gina, the landmark agreement in terms of the response to climate change globally, and where the leaders came together with some real commitments around carbon emissions and financing. Funding is another big piece of that. Where I think the target's $100 billion annually that is meant to be clubbed together to help the countries who need the support with financing for adaptation and mitigation. So here in the Cayman Islands, in terms of our contribution to climate change from our carbon emissions, our relative contribution to the global situation, of course, is fairly small. Just because of our size. We're certainly, when you look to places like China or the United States, they're serious contributors to the global issue. But unfortunately, one of the things that you find if you drill down a little deeper is that on a per capita basis, in terms of our emissions, we're right up there with the United States, for example, in terms of our per capita emissions. And the other fact for us as a small island developing state, or they call us a SIDS, S-I-D-S, we're going to bear the biggest impacts from some of the effects of climate change, like sea level rise. That's one of the big problems for us. The warming of the ocean has dramatic impacts for us in terms of our coral reefs, and that's something that Ms. Gina can talk about. And so we're in this situation where we haven't contributed in a massive way to the problem, but we're going to feel the effects of it significantly. And so we really need to be focusing on our adaptation and our mitigation. But having said that, we also need to make sure that we're kind of getting our own house in order, with our carbon emissions and some of our steps around conservation and protecting some of our carbon sinks. Because it's, we really need to be able to speak with some level of credibility when we go to the larger nations to say, look, we've sorted ourselves out. We've addressed how we're part of the problem. You need to do your part now too. So,
Christina?
No, I agree with everything that Jennifer has just said. I mean, obviously, the urgency of dealing with climate change, and I mean in terms of transformational cuts in carbon dioxide, because that's what it's coming down to. I mean, we need to cut greenhouse gas emissions because that's the cause of climate change. So in order to do that and because countries are so entrenched in terms of their economic models and so forth with carbon-based fuels, and transitioning towards more sustainable forms of energy provision is possible, but it takes some doing, and there's a whole bunch of politics around the energy provision equation, and that's what's the sticking point primarily. It's that people don't, countries don't want to give up any kind of economic edge they might have, and some of that might be related to either the fact that they are providers of fossil fuels, or that their economies are so highly dependent on fossil fuels. So, and I think the point about Cayman is that we have the opportunity. We are not a huge manufacturing country, so we don't have masses of economic investment in fossil fuel hungry technologies or anything like that. Our biggest problem, of course, is the way that we produce our energy. We have a national energy policy that says by 2037, we're going to meet 70% of our demand for energy with renewables, but we hardly have broken the surface of that. We're about 3%. So that's an enormous mountain to climb, but it is possible. It just takes commitment.
Mm-hmm. Well, when we come back from this first break, let's maybe delve into that. Share with us, not only, and for those who are listening, the Honorable Premiers be able to join us remotely. You want to know how? Let's leverage technology. It may be a hologram. I don't know. We just might have something in place for you. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
Savannah Pharmacy. Shop local and get a head start on your Christmas shopping. For ladies' handbags, clothes, shoes, fragrance, candles, and cosmetics with the newest Farmhouse Fresh line of skincare. For the gentlemen, clothes, shoes, fragrances, gift sets, and toys and games for the kids. Savannah Pharmacy provides you with more than just prescriptions. Remember, they are always just around the corner with everything your family needs. And convenient opening hours, including Sundays and holidays. Savannah Pharmacy. For more information, call 946-3336.
A friendly holiday reminder. You can WhatsApp your Savannah Pharmacy prescription to 929-5045. That's 929-5045.
For medical lab services in Cayman, go straight to MedLab.
For a full range of medical services, pleasant, clean and comfortable environment, no long lines and affordable fees, visit MedLab at the Smith Road Plaza. Open Monday to Friday, 8:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. and half day on Saturdays. Call 949-7331 to make your appointment.
For medical lab services in Cayman, MedLab.
Ask our professional team about the benefits of cutting-edge technology with MedLab's new state-of-the-art digital mammogram machine.
Had a look at those investment options yet?
Too busy. Look at today. Workout, breakfast, take the kids to school, back-to-back meetings, take Pepper to the vet, and she's apparently got allergies now, so... And that was all before 12. But you look relaxed.
That's because my money's as busy as you.
With RF, you can access the best in local and international investments to keep your money busy, so you can spend more time focusing on you. Contact us at rfgroup.com to find out more. RF, money at work.
We think it's time you crossed over to a new vehicle. And with the 2021 Toyota Corolla Cross now at Vamp Motors, you have plenty of reasons to make the switch. The crossover body and hybrid engine is a sleek design in a sturdy structure with a spacious interior that opens to extensive cargo space. Stuck in traffic? The high-performance self-charging hybrid system automatically switches between gas and electric vehicle mode, helping you lower both fuel costs and carbon emissions. The Corolla Cross has full LED lighting inside and out, an integrated display audio system with energy monitor, and a dual-zone climate control system to ensure comfort for all. Test drive the new 2021 Toyota Corolla Cross Hybrid today at Vamp Motors, Walkers Road.
I've got some beautiful clothes. I know just where they go. Good and cleaners.
Now is the time, and we are ready to help you with your household cleaning needs. And that is bedspreads, comforters, duvets, duvet covers, drapes, and so much more. All items at 10% off prepay, and turnaround time will be 2 to 3 days. Orders can be handled at all 3 stores: Elgin Avenue, Savannah Countryside, Eastern Avenue, drive-through, rain or shine. All stores close at 5:30 p.m. Monday through Saturday. Call 949-7104. Puritan Cleaners. You feel good when you look good.
Shaken yet standing firm.
I was not built to break.
This is Radio Cayman in the Cayman Islands.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waging to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back. Thanks for joining us as we talk about the importance of our impact on the environment and how the environment will impact us. Well, Ms. Jennifer Heron and Ginny Ebanks sits with us. Sometimes it would appear that for many of us, discussions like this are almost esoteric. They seem to revolve around a small group of people just having banter about something that is well, theoretical, improbable, even if it's, hitting us in the face, as it were, or it's for them. Maybe as we talk about climate change, climate resiliency, talk about the sustainability and the impact of global warming, rising sea levels, the economics, the politics, the social implications, a lot of things that may take more than a 30-second soundbite, as it were, or even one generation to address. Help us to appreciate what is it that is transpiring, what has transpired, both from the published scientific studies to the controversial discussions that may unfold amongst the talking heads sometimes.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I'll let Miss Gina talk about the science part.
Okay. All right. So just in August of this year, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change published its 6th report, I think it was, on the physical basis for climate change. So the Intergovernmental Panel is basically scientists from all across the United Nations. It's a UN group of scientists, and they don't conduct primary research, but what they do is they review all of the academic and other research that's been happening since their last publication. And they review it as robustly as possible. I mean, there's a lot of disagreement, amongst the scientists about what the studies are actually saying.
Right.
So when they come out with a report, that's a consensus view of the report and of the evidence. And so I think that we can take great comfort in that it is actually the consensus. It's not, the views on either extreme of the spectrum. But also the evidence itself is so conclusive now that it's really, I don't see how it's possible for anybody to dispute the fact. We've already seen warming of the surface of the Earth's temperature by 1.1 degrees above pre-industrial levels. So that's established. The level of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere is high enough now to be extremely worrying. It doesn't mean that it wasn't higher in the past, and this is what I keep hearing a lot of people saying is, but in the past we've had carbon dioxide levels much higher, and that's true. But humans weren't around then, and we're talking about trying to preserve the planet for human life. So this isn't about, tree huggers getting upset about something. This is about preserving human life and ensuring that the conditions that have occurred over the last, several millions of years that have allowed human beings to flourish as a species, and the climate that we've enjoyed. I think David Attenborough made this point when he spoke to the plenary session at the COP on the first day, that it's only been this period of time where we've had a climate that is relatively benign and predictable, that humans have been able to flourish, that our civilization has emerged, and we've been able to flourish. So to sit and think that it's not possible for us to disrupt that is, in my mind, I can't actually get my head around ignoring that evidence. But the evidence, the scientific evidence for climate change now is unequivocal. That's the statement that the scientists have made. We're all in terms of what we are seeing here in Cayman and what we're likely to see. I said that we already are seeing. We've already seen a warming of our temperatures. So the fact that we sometimes say, "Oh my gosh, it's hot. It doesn't used to be this hot." That's true. It didn't used to be this hot, and it's getting hotter, and that's predicted to continue.
Right.
Did you have a question?
No. I'm just listening. Of course, I'll always chime in and ask things because, as you were saying, that I think back to even our children now. They may be in their early 20s, late teens, and they may say, "Oh, well, it's hotter now than." When they were playing outside. In a matter of 10, 15 years, less than 2 decades, they've sensed that. We who are still 40-ish, we know the
I
difference.
wish.
We can still say those things. I mean, come on. 40 plus 20 is just, another number. But when we talk to our parents and even our grandparents, they will relay certain things. But I wanted to ask, though, in amongst the chant for 1.5 to stay alive, we've seen that running around. Go back to what we shared earlier. What can we do as small developing nations, populations of 120,000, in some cases less, physical land space of a couple of hundred square miles, relatively speaking? What can we do that would help? Ms. Gina, you talked about reducing the carbon dioxide. We look at some of the things from that policy perspective, Ms. Jen.
Yeah.
What do we do?
I mean, I think one of the things that I think people really struggle with climate change and the impacts of it is that question: what can we do? How can I, as an individual, make a difference to the problem that is just so big? And how do we reverse this? And Gina's talked when we were on with OC on Monday morning. There are some things around climate change that are locked in. Yeah. That even if, she gave the example, if we're able to stop all emissions now, we're still locked in for some sea level rise because of the warming that has already occurred. And, and I think it's an opportunity, though, for us as individuals to take steps that can make a difference. Embrace the fact that if every one of us makes some positive changes, the collective impact of those changes can make a difference.
What sort of steps are we talking about?
So it's things like, you talk about a plant-based diet. Gina did a presentation at the healthcare conference on their opening night, and she showed the impacts of some of the carbon impacts, and beef is a really big one. It's bigger than transatlantic flights, for example.
One cow consumes so much in order to produce this little bit. That's all.
But again, I mean, even with that, I was watching a program on BBC last night about, I think it's called regenerative agriculture as a solution to cutting carbon emissions in agriculture. So there are people out there who are working on this problem, who've been working on this problem a long time. What needs to happen now is that at a global level and in every country, there's got to be the policy environment that encourages that kind of innovation and adopts measures specifically to build in climate resiliency and overall sustainability for our planet. And I think there's also just a real acceptance now and an acknowledgement that it is not just all about cutting carbon emissions, but it is also about protecting our environment, because areas like mangrove wetlands, for example, and our seagrass beds are known now to be some of the best systems at sequestering and storing carbon, better than the rainforest, better than the Amazon. We all think about protecting the Amazon, which absolutely needs to be protected, but we have our own blue carbon, they call it, systems here that are so important and that are even better and more efficient. So to not bear that in mind and to not use that as an additional reason to protect our mangroves and our seagrasses, because we already have plenty in terms of the ecology of our marine resources, protections from hurricanes, the interconnectedness between our reefs and mangroves and seagrass beds, why they all need to be protected. There are so many reasons why we need to protect these natural areas.
And I think one of the things with climate change and sustainability is it does touch everything. It touches and concerns every aspect of our daily lives, everything that we do. And I think one of the things that has to happen as well, and one of the reasons for meetings like COP 26, is that there has to be systemic change happening. There has to be changes in policy frameworks. There has to be things that are incentivized, like the regenerative agriculture, and we have to disincentivize some of the more harmful practices that traditionally have been getting subsidies and have been getting incentives.
So let's ask a couple of questions then, Ms. Jen. We referenced earlier, 70% by 2037. Look at national energy policy. And there is no question, there's the economics of the politics, and there's the politics of the economics in terms of the larger countries ensuring that their economies, because of the dependency on fossil fuels, but also the export capacity.
Mm-hmm.
So from the Cayman context, because I think way back when we were here, think globally and act locally. Well, maybe we should start thinking local and acting globally as well.
Yeah.
But with that in mind, influencing the spaces that we occupy, what about policies that would make things mandatory? We think of carbon emissions from our power plants, our utilities. Well, we make vaccines mandatory. We make having a driver's license mandatory. You need to be. Could we do that to say, get on board? Other countries have done it to similar industries. Is that something that we could do?
I think, one of the challenges that is a challenge for governments worldwide is finding that balance between mandating things and incentivizing things. And I think one of the things that we need to do is get to the point, because I don't think there's any question, certainly not in my mind, that this is an existential crisis that we're facing as a community, as a country, as people, that the impacts that we could have from not living more sustainably, from not making sure that we're improving our climate resiliency, those are some serious, serious things. And we need to get to the point where we're all just doing the right things every day, because that's just how we live. That's just, we know that that's the right thing to do.
Do the right thing because it's the right thing to do.
Because it's the right thing to do. But it's for governments, you have to strike the balance between mandating some of those right things and just encouraging some of those right things, making sure that people have the information they need to make those decisions, making sure that the environment is conducive to them making those decisions. A lot of it is about behavior change. And changing people's behaviors is a very difficult thing to do. If it was easy, then, we'd all be, nobody would smoke. We'd all be running around at our ideal weight and getting exercise every day if it was easy. But it's not. And so, from government's perspective, then, we have policy tools like the National Energy Policy. We have legislative frameworks like the National Conservation Act and the National Conservation Council created under that Act. We have a draft climate change policy that we're just embarking on a review and an update with the view of bringing it. It's from 2011, so obviously things have changed with the passage of time. So we've just, with the support of the Governor's Office, actually signed an agreement with CFAS, which I can't remember what that stands for. The
Center for Environment, Fisheries, and Aquaculture Science.
Right, who are going to do a risk assessment for us on climate change so that we can identify a long list of the risks. And we'll have some stakeholder work together in early 2022 to shortlist that down. And those risks will then be fed into updating this climate change policy. It's,
it's an ongoing process.
It is. It's a process, but it's also about bringing, as I mentioned earlier, sustainability and climate change impacts touch every aspect.
Right.
If you look at the UN Sustainable Development Goals, I don't imagine that there'd be any aspect of anybody's life that isn't addressed there. It's education, it's health, it's poverty,
it's all
healthy communities, it's economies, it's the whole thing. So it's about making sure that all of this is sort of getting infused into all the work the government does.
With that in mind, though, as I listen to you, and I keep thinking, here is another conference of political leaders, who are talking, making good policy statements and doing something. So come back to two questions. The substantive one, why not make these things mandatory like we do with other things? The discussion would be.
I mean, I do think that eventually we're going to have to, in the same way as we've mandated a building code to protect us from hurricanes, for example.
Right.
I mean, that's not anybody's choice, right? Well, hurricanes are going to get much, much stronger as a result of climate change. So to mandate, for example, energy efficiency measures in buildings, I think would be something that we could take a look at doing. Because I think it makes good sense. It reduces the cost of energy for people on the on the back end of the process, but it also the end result is that we're expending less energy to cool our homes, which is one of our biggest, as you know, ticket items when it comes to our individual budgets. And we were talking about individual actions. And I think that is something that people can choose to do before it's mandated. They can choose to get, better insulation in their roofs and in their homes. They can choose energy efficient appliances, etc., when they have to replace them. And they can choose to put energy-efficient windows and doors and to make sure that the envelope of their house is actually
But that comes with a significant expense, though. And I mean, not to belabor it, but go back to the big polluters. Let's take, the power plants, for instance, globally as well as here. Why not make it a mandate? We're up now with mandating so much. Industries, particular entities, hey, by this time, the government law is that you need to be doing this, whether we're incentivizing or punishing you if you don't. I want to maybe ask about that after the break. Being reminded that we got to take a break. Engage in the conversation, and the breaks are interrupt, but they're important. So let's do that. When we come back, we'll ask more about it and talk about the geopolitical landscape and the politics of the economy. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
Freedom, Cayman Brack. Freedom, Little Cayman. Soft breezes, blue waters, no traffic. Unwind and rejuvenate your mind, body, and soul. Sister Island Staycations, a taste of freedom. Discover all that our sister islands have to offer.
You can now register to receive a securely verified digital copy of your COVID-19 vaccination status with QR code through the My HSA patient portal. Sign up is available at all HSA locations and at various sites throughout the community. To register, all you need is your photo ID showing date of birth and a valid email address. Visit hsa.ky and click My HSA Patient Portal for the sign-up schedule and more information.
20 years.
Remember when Crew Road had no median and Linford Pearson was only 2 lanes?
We do.
When Dirty Reeds was down the street?
We do.
We have been there for the falls, the growth, and the rise. When your body and mind needed to change, Powerhouse Gym has been here. We've skated with you. Your first date, your daughter's first time on skates, your son's first strike. From football to squash, to karate and hockey, to bowling and concerts, and everything in between.
For 20 years.
So much has changed, some for the good and some not so much. Through it all, King Sports Center has been here for you, for Cayman.
King Sports Center, celebrating 20 years as Cayman's home for fitness, recreation, and relaxation.
All the world's greatest inventions were initially misunderstood.
What?
Except for KFC's Pizza, a pizza made with all chicken and no crust, tomato sauce and pepperoni, topped off with delicious melted cheese. An invention that is understood from the very first bites. Pizza from KFC. No need to explain. You just need to taste it.
Try Pizza at KFC Shedden Road and KFC Baytown today.
Come on, Cayman. Let's get ready to reopen. Countries all over the world are proving life can go on and we can safely coexist with COVID-19 in our community. With open borders, our readiness will be vital to protect each other and our islands. We can do this. Have your voice heard and pledge you are ready to safely reopen. Visit reopencayman.com. Join the movement and pledge that you are ready to reopen on November 20th.
Shaken yet standing firm. This is Radio Cayman in the Cayman Islands.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back, and thanks for joining us. Always a pleasure to be able to welcome Starbucks to our studio, like Ms. Jennifer Heron and Ms. Gina Eubanks, to share with us. And I think as we look at the impact of, how we go about our daily lives, sometimes unconsciously aware of the negative consequences, and maybe sadly only seeing it, when we get to a certain age, post 40, that we see it. But we know that the Honourable Premier and other delegates attending the Conference of Parties in Glasgow, so it's good to be represented. We also gather from the press release that he's invited into the Blue Zone. I thought, that's a party area nowadays.
Yeah,
that is significant.
I think, as we've talked about off air, I think one really exciting development is that the government has made a commitment to creating a legacy of sustainability. And as part of that commitment, the Premier is our Minister for Sustainability and Climate Resiliency.
Mm-hmm.
And as in his role as a Premier and as the Minister responsible for climate resiliency, he is currently at the COP meeting in Glasgow, and he's there as part of the UK delegation with there's 5 other colleagues from the UK OTs who are there with him and the UK delegation. And they were all accredited to be in the Blue Zone, which is the section of the event where the world leaders are meeting, where all of the talks are happening, and to have an opportunity to be present at that event for the Cayman Islands is a really significant opportunity. I know that there was a meeting or a reception that the Premier was invited to where he had an opportunity to meet both the Prime Minister Boris Johnson, and he's also, I believe, had a chance to speak to Prince Charles as well, who, as people will remember, visited here and was most impressed with particularly our blue iguana conservation program, as well as the expansion of our marine parks that were initially approved in 2019. And were a significant achievement for us from that conservation perspective as well. So the Premier is there. He's in the mix. He's getting an opportunity to sort of promote our cause and our concerns. And I think that what we're seeing coming out of the reports from COP, and if you haven't had a chance to watch the video of the Prime Minister of Barbados delivering her remarks on the opening day. She said 2 degrees is a death sentence for the Caribbean, for the small islands like ours, and she spoke very convincingly. David Attenborough also gave a very moving, very emotive presentation there. But the fact is that, for the Cayman Islands to be there at that event, in that venue, with those global leaders is an amazing opportunity for us, and I think it's fantastic that the Premier was able to go. And we also have equally fantastic representation from students.
Mm-hmm.
We have a group of students who are over there in Glasgow. Now, they're in the green zone, which is the open events, the open venues, with the exception of one of our students who has been selected to speak on a panel that is being put together by the UK Overseas Territories Association, and she's been selected as a student representative for the UK OTs. Dejay Lyons, and she's going to be speaking. Unfortunately, it's very early on Saturday morning. It's at 6:00 our time, and there will be a live stream of it, and we will try and make sure that it gets repeated. But she's been selected to be the voice of the next generation from the UCOTS on this Nature Day panel focusing on oceans. So it's very exciting. But along with her are a number of other student advocates, I guess, who are over there, and we had a call this morning, and we heard from Catherine Childs from the Trust that the one young lady in particular is
Steph McDermott
is making her presence very felt and making sure that everybody knows about the concerns that she has as well. So it's very encouraging to know that we've got these young people who are pushing this agenda, who are making their voices heard, and making it very clear that they're the ones who are going to have to clean this mess up. But they need us to make sure that we're sorting it out, so that to try and minimize the mess that they have to deal with.
Right. Yeah. Well, as we shared, the Honourable Premier did send in a message for us. It's in the queue. Let's hear from the Honourable Premier.
Hey there. I've been impressed with the caliber of young people who have been present at COP, demanding that the world take action to protect their future. And it has also been very interesting to see indigenous peoples represented there who have obviously come a long ways, perhaps traveling for the first time in some cases, who are also demanding that their way of life be protected and that their future be preserved and protected as well. The world clearly has to take action now. There's no more time. It has to take action now. When I think of the possibility, maybe even probability, that if we are at 1.5 degree centigrade increase or higher, we will lose all of our coral reef. It's just, I find it astounding. I find it incomprehensible. I find it something that would be inconsolable, and it is therefore unacceptable. The world must take action, and we must be a part of it. We must do this for our children and their future.
That was the honourable premier, over in Glasgow at COP26. Now we have the news break to take. We've got a couple of calls that we'll invite into discussion, a few WhatsApps with some questions. I'll have a look at them. When we come back, we'll continue the discussion. Please stay tuned for Talk Today.
Follow Radio Cayman on Twitter. All the latest information, breaking news, community events, and more. Follow us at twitter.com/Radio Cayman.
Today's biggest news.
Radio Cayman, your voice, your choice.
Local, regional, international. This is Headlines from Radio Cayman's newsroom.
Today's biggest news.
If you found yourself unexpectedly in isolation and need some help, organizers of the Isolation Support Line are encouraging you to reach out.
The main criteria is that persons are unable to gain access to the internet to purchase groceries on their own, or they don't have a debit card, or they don't have anyone to assist them in isolation.
Hazard Management's Teresita De Silva tells CIGTV the Isolation Support Hotline was set up about a week ago, namely for groceries. The Isolation Support number is 946-3530. You can also email isolationsupport@gov.ky. Turning to international news now, U.S. health officials on Tuesday gave the final sign-off to Pfizer's kid-size COVID-19 shot, a milestone that opens a major expansion of the nation's vaccination campaign to children as young as 5. The Food and Drug Administration already authorized the shots for children ages 5 to 11, doses just a third of the amount given to teens and adults. But the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention formally recommends who should receive FDA-cleared vaccines. Governments and big investors announced fresh steps Wednesday to pour trillions of dollars into curbing global warming, reflecting the financial world's growing embrace of efforts to fight climate change as both a business necessity and opportunity. But some social justice activists called for scrutiny of investors' motives, warning that the same financial institutions that profited from funding fossil fuel firms were now being presented as green champions. And a 4-year-old girl missing for 18 days in a remote part of Western Australia has been found alive and well in a locked house, police have said. Cleo Smith disappeared from her family's tent at a campsite near the town of Carnarvon on October 16th, triggering a massive search. A 36-year-old man is in custody and being questioned by detectives. Those are your latest headlines here on Radio Cayman. I'm Shanda Gallego.
For the latest in news and information,
follow Radio Cayman on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Download the Radio Cayman app or log on to our website, radiocayman.gov.ky.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon, welcome back, and thanks for joining us. Glad that we can have extended company of most, opportunity to continue speaking about climate change, resilience, or impact on the environment, and global leaders, and some of our students in particular at COP26 over in Glasgow. If we were there, we could maybe go running in the Highlands after, but I just have to be content with what was once the Van Groves and the North Sound. Gina Ebanks and Jennifer Ahern are our guests. We do have a caller, DJ Lynn, I think told me that about 5 days ago. Finally getting the message. Our greatest respect and appreciation for your patience and staying online. Good afternoon and welcome. Thanks for calling.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon, sir. I should even be more publicly apologetic. Thank you, sir. You did tell me there was a call.
I've been listening to this discussion. And, of course, we're talking relevant to Cayman mostly.
Yes, sir.
And I asked this question. Has anybody, or has there ever been any survey, let's say go back over the last 150 years, comparing what was going on in Cayman then, the Cayman environment at that time, to what we see now?
Ms. Gino?
Okay. So I'm not aware of a survey as such that took place 150 years ago, but we do have some historical data on the condition of our environmental resources. We also have really, I think, a unique ability to look back in time with the use of the excellent data set of aerial photography that Lands and Survey has. So regularly, the Department of Environment can look back at what the condition of an area was, for example, in terms of land cover anyway, back to 1958. And of course, as you know, Mr. Loxley, that's a long time before development set in earnest anyway. So we do have the ability to see how things have changed, and we do keep a track of how things are changing now. Department uses drone technology, for example, to get updated aerial photography in between the Lands and Survey flights. So the last aerial photography that was flown by Lands and Survey is 2018. So when we need to have an updated picture of what's happening, we rely on our drone imagery to update that. So in short, we have some ability to look back. We have some historical data in terms of the condition of our environmental resources, but there wasn't a survey, a comprehensive survey per se.
Yes, sir. Let me just inject here. You know? Thinking of the temperatures that, and I can only speak for myself, of the temperatures that I feel when I'm out and about 12 o'clock in the day, 3 o'clock in the day, or whatever, compared to the temperatures that I felt around 1952. Okay? And I finished at that point. Working along 7 Mile Beach, 12 o'clock in the day, hauling sand off the beach to fill up some trenches that the Navy had dug. You know, I guess that was 52, so it would have been about 9 or 10 years prior to that. And thinking and trying to relate that in comparison, I don't think that the temperature that we're feeling now is any more than what I remember, what I perceive that I felt during those times. And of course, we had a grape tree, or we had an almond tree, or we had, let's see, what else, a casuarina tree, that if we got too hot, we could go and take a little breather. Now, when you compare that to what we got here today, I think that's where the problem is at. And another question: has there been any, or is there any body or any data available that countenances the number of windmills that was here in Cayman? Let's say, I would say well, I can only speak of maybe between 1948 and 1954. Or compare the transportation that was, now grant you the population was a lot less, but compare all these things. The transportation that was being provided by wind power and Turtle Meat and Cornbread power.
Yes, sir.
As to what is being done today. And I think that if you compare all those things, you would probably come up with a perception that not much has changed over the last 150 years. And a lot of what is being projected for our consumption now is simply, I don't want to put a nomenclature to it, but and if we're going to what should I say, mitigate any of the perceived changes that have occurred over the last 150 years, then, and reference was made to the foliage coverage compared, and what are we doing about the foliage? We're tearing it down and erecting densely reflecting concrete. That is heat reflecting concrete, and we're not, we're not digging at the potato that is really affecting us.
Okay. All right. Well, as we mull that over, maybe I'll get them to respond. But we will have another call as well. But before we do, Ms. Gino and Ms. Jane, if you wish to come, anything else you want to share, sir?
Well, yes, I think you and I relate going into what's Governor's Harbor, and this was in the early 50s. It was just a little cut, and we had to actually push the leaves and tree limbs, and this was a big catboat, to get in there. But we went in and we did what we had to do. Whatever we did in there, we went in, we came back out, and we left the foliage as it was. You look at that cut now. It's been widened, I guess, by 15, 20, maybe 30, 40 feet. More. There's no foliage over the cut. Where's the heat going?
Yeah, that's the impact. Thanks very much, sir.
Yeah.
All right.
I would. Do you want to take the next call, or just quickly in response? I mean, a lot of Mr. Loxley's observations are valid in terms of the loss of vegetation cover, the fact that we're building surfaces that are not very energy efficient because they're absorbing heat instead of reflecting heat back out, that sort of thing. But I mean, there is no question that on average the Earth's surface has warmed by over 1 degree centigrade, and that since pre-industrial time. So that is not that isn't up for dispute at the moment. It's just a fact, and it is that warming. That warming is largely caused by the amount of carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases that we're pushing into the atmosphere.
The heat island effect.
And it's basically an enhanced greenhouse effect. And it's very difficult to speak about this without showing a diagram, but that is why the Earth is warming, is because the sun's heat would normally be dispersed back into the atmosphere and beyond, and that's just not happening now because these gases are trapping a lot of that heat. The concentration of gases is beyond the limit where that regulation can occur. That sort of self-regulation can occur. So we're heating up instead of remaining a constant temperature.
And I think how that's expressed or how it's felt globally varies from place to place. So, overall, as Gina said, on average, the Earth's surface has warmed. But that doesn't necessarily translate immediately into that it's 1 degree for me and it's 1 degree for somebody in Russia and it's 1 degree in Iceland. It is felt in different ways, and the impacts from that warming and how they're being manifested are very different depending on where you are in the globe.
And the population concentration and the density of buildings. I mean, again, I was reading something about India. Parts of India where they're regularly experiencing 50 degrees Celsius regularly now, and I mean it's
they can't cool their homes to sleep. They can't go to work. I mean, it's just, if you think that, I don't know what the hottest temperature we get here would be. It feels like
35, 38, something like that,
But it's not 50.
Right.
No.
All right, let's take these other callers then and get a chance to hear. Hey, good afternoon. Welcome. Thanks for calling.
Yeah, good afternoon to you, Sterling.
Afternoon, man. How are you today?
I'm well, sir. How are you doing today?
Excellent. Blessed, man. Always thankful.
Blessed. And good afternoon to your guest, Mrs. Ahern.
Afternoon.
And good afternoon to perhaps one of the most favorite senior civil servants that I'd like to hear on, because I've always, over the years, admired her passion for Cayman and for our environment. So good afternoon to Miss Gina Petrie Ebanks, or Ebanks Petrie.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon to you, Mom. I don't know exactly all that you're talking about, but I can hear it certainly surrounding the topical issue of global warming and stuff. And I'm championing, hoping that there can be some response in regards to my concern. And I don't know if global warming plays into all of it, but I suspect it does. But let me preface what I'm going to say by saying this. Oftentimes, when one hears about global warming and I think most people just think this is something way off and way out there and has nothing to do with us. And for the most part, in a lot of ways, it doesn't, because the largest producers of the gases and that sort of thing are some of these huge countries, and we can only pray that they get it and that really they're the ones that providing the greatest impact. But then I listened to you all the other morning on the morning show, and I heard where you were trying to, of course, make it relevant to ourselves, and the little things, I think, was the focus then that we can do to help with our global footprint in Cayman to assist us, and those are positive. But I couldn't help but to think, so I'm so glad you're on now, which is what I'm getting to. I couldn't help but to think what perhaps is the greatest threat and perhaps the most angering thing for me as a Caymanian is the issue surrounding our beach erosion, and the very fact that Caymanians, traditional Caymanians, whether it's 35,000 or 40,000 of us, have had to endure over the years, and our footprint, local footprint, forget global footprint, in terms of what we've done to our environment. It is heartbreaking to see it. And you know what? As a former civil servant, I had the privilege to be able to be within a conference that was presented during my early years in the service at the Department of Tourism, where I was privileged to be able to hear Ms. Petrie Ebanks speak passionately to the shareholders at that time, the associations and that sort of thing. And she gave some amazing presentations surrounding beach erosion at that particular time, and used the tripod variable of the social, economic, and environmental impacts, and how, if we leave any one of those out, how it impacts our lives. I remember specifically she gave examples, and she's in a chair so she can deny or confirm what I've said, but I remember that she shared, and this stuck with me, she shared about how the Department of Environment was passionate in regards to trying to get the setbacks for some of the major developments along the 7 Mile Beach at the time, and it became a political issue. And our short-sighted leaders of the time pushed back heavily. And one of them was an example she gave, for example, and they won, thankfully. The Ritz-Carlton at the time had wanted to be, that was where the old Holiday Inn was, had wanted to be 100 feet closer to the sea than it is now. And you can confirm or deny that, Ms. Petrie Ebanks. And how we were able to eventually get them to move back, thankfully, because, of course, that stretch of the beach is perhaps one of the nicest that we have in this country still. And then she talked about, some of the drainage systems that we have for some of the inland developments, and some of our local developers who were clearing out everything that, to do with swamps and the whole line. And she highlighted some of those areas, and we see to this day they have some of the flooding that they do, like the Randike Gardens development and all those kind of things. So I remember that, and I just want to ask, the question is, what are we doing about the horrible situation? We're talking about opening up and presenting. What we're going to present is a nightmare to our visitors, never mind COVID and the nightmare that we're going to experience there, God forbid. But what are we doing about the beach erosion? And I wish, lastly, I'll say this in regards to Ms. Petrie Ebanks and their department. And I'm sorry to use your name so much, ma'am, but you stick out to me, and I'm proud of your efforts. Now, I know you've been in some controversial areas surrounding things like catchment and all that sort of thing. But I think of the most recent development that was approved next to the public beach, or near the public beach, that again you had a very direct hand in, that is the Department of Environment, if I should use that, and not make it so much about yourself, Mom, in terms of putting you on the spotlight. But I know the Department of Environment had produced a huge report surrounding that building, and if I recall correctly, and I could be corrected again, it was pushed back by the then government because this development had to take place. So once again, the local population has had to endure a lot of things. Now, never mind the development has helped us, but we have had that balance wrong for so long, and so now we see the Marriott getting ready to float in the middle of the Caribbean Sea. So what are we going to do about that? Are we going to finally order for all the pools and everything to get pushed down? Because I'll vote on that. And get all those things pushed back. And I'm being radical for a reason, because it perhaps is what's needed now, and we can't just, walk and tippy-toe around the issue that we're losing perhaps the greatest gem to this country that Caymanians have, something that we have all walked on, slept on, or ate on, or sat with our families, and now we're having to swim out in the middle of the ocean in order to get around a property too. It's high time that any government approach that issue with some seriousness and not talk about backing sand from somewhere else and all this kind of stuff. I've listened to your department over the years try to fight to keep our environment, Ms. Peachy Banks, and I just want to say to you, thank you, because you've been a stalwart to not be pushed over by leaders of those times. And I know you paid a high price for that, Mom. I know you have, Mom. There's no way you could have, having been a former civil servant of 17 years. So thank you again, and I'd like to hear you talk about what they're doing about the Stoneware Beach, because that's a local footprint. Forget global footprint. Local footprint, that big one we need to deal with.
All right. Hey, thanks very much, sir. Thanks very much. Ms. Gino?
Okay. Well, thank you very much for recognizing the work of the DOE. I'm glad that somebody has been keeping in touch with what we've been recommending over the years. So yes, you're right, absolutely, that sea level rise does, and global warming, as sea level rise as a result of climate change, does play into what we're seeing happening on our beaches now. But also irresponsible development practices have made that much, much worse. So yes, I mean, in terms of sea level rise in the Caribbean, we've already seen, about 0.6 of a foot since about 1900. And that's just projected to increase even more, up to possibly 3 feet by the end of the century if we don't get the warming under control. So that's not a small matter for us at all. But you're right that we have to not just deal with the physical impacts of climate change, but think about our development practices and how they can be actually we can use those development practices to mitigate the effects of climate change. We have to address our coastal setbacks. We must measure our coastal setbacks and have them reflect the reality of what's happening offshore. So for that, I mean that we can't just have one setback for all beaches, because, as you know, anybody who has been around Cayman will know that 7 Mile Beach is very different from an exposed beach on the north coast, which is very different from, say, the beach that you get in Frank Sound, a mile-wide lagoon with fringing reefs. So it makes no sense to have the same coastal setbacks for those kinds of beaches, even though they're all beaches. And at the moment, that's the way our coastal setbacks are specified. If you're a beach, you're this much. If you're iron shore, you're this much. It doesn't take account of whether you're fronted by a lagoon and a fringing reef that will mitigate wave impact, or you're on a completely exposed coastline with 60 feet of water offshore. And that really does matter from the perspective of coastal setbacks. So what I'll do is I'll stop talking and I'll turn over to Chief Officer Ahern, and she can explain what the ministry is doing in relation to trying to address both those issues. The issue of, how can we get coastal setbacks in line with what we need to and future-proof those, as well as the immediacy of what we're trying to do for the the much eroded southern end of 7 Mile Beach in particular.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I want to thank the caller for reminding us about the triple bottom line as well, which is, the people, planet, profits, and achieving that balance. Mm-hmm. One of the accusations I think that we hear when we start talking about sustainability and conservation is that we're trying to stop development, and that, that's not at all what it is about. It's about achieving that balance so that you're making sure that you're looking at the social benefits, the environmental benefits, and the economic benefits, and finding the right balance. And I think the caller is absolutely right, and that we have not done the best job. That's quite an understatement, I guess, of achieving that balance in the past. And we're paying the price now. Some of the development decisions that have been made in the past have by not looking through that lens of sustainability, we're starting to see those impacts. And one of those areas is certainly in our coastal setbacks. Mm-hmm. And one of, Miss Gina mentioned the work that we're doing. The ministry has a steering group, a technical working group that has been looking at the issue of the beach erosion, focusing on 7 Mile Beach in particular, but recognizing that we actually need to address our coastal setbacks on all 3 islands. And as she mentioned, looking at the differences between, a beach is not a beach is not a beach. And the setbacks that are required are going to be different depending on the dynamics of that system, because beaches are very dynamic coastlines. And trying to make sure that we're putting in place a better reference point. Right now, under the legislation, the setback is measured from the high water mark, which is a moving target. And depending on the time of day, the day of the week, and whether we've just had a storm or not, the high water mark can vary by dozens of feet in terms of where it is. And that's why if you look up and down 7 Mile Beach, you'll see that some development seems to be he mentioned it's in the middle of the Caribbean Sea, whereas others appear to be a setback a little bit more reasonably. So we are looking at other ways to measure the setback from other than the high water mark, and then part of the work will also be looking at making recommendations around changing the setbacks from that reference point to try and create, to retain that level of safety, really, for the structures on the coast, so that they're not subject to the impacts of the weather, of the climate change, the sea level rise, and so on. So that's some of the work that we're doing. And you're looking like you need to take a break.
No, we will certainly. This is very, talk show breaks. We find that balance between development and environment. It's here. So glad that we have a phenomenal sales team and advertisers who understand that they really want to reach the widest audience. There's only one radio station, that's Radio Cayman. We do have a series of questions, and we pull them together from some of our listeners. And let's put it together, says, good afternoon, very interesting topic on the show again today, of climate change. Heard a guest on the morning show the other day with the same topic. Climate change is a very important matter. I've heard your guests advocating for the people of Cayman, the Cayman Islands, to build small and more efficient homes and to start purchasing non-combustion cars, electric cars, for instance. Here's a few questions. What size of homes are they referring to in terms of square feet? What kinds of cars are they referring to? What size of homes currently live in? What kind of cars are we currently driving combustion electric? And how much has the Cayman Islands contributed to this issue, and not per capita? Does it make sense to put more restrictions in place here in Cayman and use millions of dollars of government funds when we are not even contributing a drop on the scale compared to the big industrialized countries who are not complying? Let me stop there. So,
I think that both the chief officer and I acknowledged early on in the program that Cayman and other small islands like ourselves, our contribution to the problem of global warming is relatively insignificant overall as a country. In 2019, our total emissions were just over 1.1 megatons of carbon dioxide equivalent. But the important point is that when you look at the emissions from 1990 to 2019, they're increasing. The main contributors are obviously energy production and transportation. So he's spot on in terms of where the problems are. But then you look, and this is what Chief Officer Ahern was mentioning, you look at our per capita emissions, and you will see that per capita we are 15.1 tons of carbon dioxide compared with somewhere like Bermuda that's at 10.1, the Isle of Man at 10.3, the UK itself is at 5.5, we're at 15.1, and the US is at 16.1. So I think that it's true that if we were to cut off all of our emissions today, we would not have any effect on the global trajectory. But I think that from a moral perspective, it's very difficult to get up and preach to people and say, you know, you have to do something about this, and not be able to say, we have done our part.
Right.
And we are not even a significant contributor.
Mm-hmm.
You need to do your part now.
Right.
So I think to take the moral high ground, you have and from a sustainability perspective, I mean, it's just clearly unsustainable what we're doing here in terms of our energy usage, etc.
So if I could then ask and come back to some of the earlier points that were referenced, we're talking, was 100 billion a year in funds committed?
That's the target.
Yeah, 100 billion. Right? That's a little bit more than I have under my mattress. I think I had that yesterday. But will any of that money be made available to, say, Cayman? I mean, we're talking about Cayman. How would those funds presumably be allocated, but would we have access to that?
I don't actually know the answer to that question. I think it's something, I know that it's often something that we struggle with as a country, particularly, for example, I know with it's very difficult, if not impossible, for us to access funds from the Caribbean Development Bank due to our GDP and our relative wealth in the region.
And also because we fall under the UK. So I don't know what the rules will be for this new tranche of funding, but in the past it has been difficult for us to access climate funding that is specifically for climate change because of our GDP, but also because we're part of the UK. So we have sort of a double issue to deal with, but to be honest, the UK has been making some funds available. For example, they are saying our climate change risk assessment through the Governor's office.
I know, got a break to take. I know you guys have a meeting, maybe a couple of minutes when we come back, so you can just share with us. All right. Few more minutes. This is the diligence and dedication that earlier caller reference. We see it here in play. We'll have one or two other comments to share, so stay tuned for Talk Today.
Radio Cayman is pleased to feature this special Sister Islands historical vignette brought to you by the Ministry of Tourism and Transport. Explore your history, explore your land, explore your Sister Islands.
The coconut industry on the Sister Islands boomed between 1890 to 1915, with annual exports exceeding 1 million per year. In 1906, the industry peaked with the Sister Islands, accounting for the entire export of the Cayman Islands. A coconut disease had previously killed off all of the trees in Grand Cayman. The industry was so successful that the government of the day went as far as to impose a special export duty. However, on Friday the 13th, 1915, a hurricane of unprecedented severity devastated the island of Cayman Brac, rendering most homeless and decimated 98% of the coconut trees on the Brac and 40% of those on Little Cayman. To add insult to injury, the coconut disease that struck Grand Cayman would soon arrive in the Sister Islands. During the 1920s and 1930s, efforts were made to revive the coconut industry, but the efforts were modest and the industry failed to reach its previous level of prosperity.
Information from this historical vignette was sourced from Founded Upon the Seas, A History of the Cayman Islands and Their People by Michael Creighton and the New History Committee.
Radio Cayman is pleased to feature this special Sister Islands historical vignette brought to you by the Ministry of Tourism and Transport. Explore your history, explore your land, explore your Sister Islands.
Wouldn't it have been grand if you had purchased land 30 years ago? It may not be 2020, but a perfect vision has never been more clear. Cayman Brac and Little Cayman, poised for growth with an eye on the future. Your land, your history, your future. Discover all that our sister islands have to offer.
We may be in Christmas shopping mode, but 'tis the flu season too. Savannah Pharmacy has immune system boosters for the entire family with a range of vitamins and supplements. Their knowledgeable and courteous pharmacists are always available to offer the best advice and products. Remember, they are always just around the corner with everything your family needs and convenient opening hours, including Sundays and holidays. Savannah Pharmacy. For more information, call 946-3336.
A friendly holiday reminder. You can WhatsApp your Savannah Pharmacy prescription to 929-5045. That's 929-5045.
You see how hard it's raining?
Yeah, and I don't have time to fight traffic and get my lunch from Subway. I have so much work to do.
Why don't you order Subway by using the Let's Eat or Bento app? Save time, stay dry, and get your sandwich fast.
I never thought of that. Great idea. I'm going to order now.
Order me a veggie pizza while you're at it.
And a cookie platter for the office.
Too busy at work or home? Is the rainy weather stopping you from dining out? Order your favorite Subway sandwich, wrap, or pizza through the Let's Eat or Bento app with fast and reliable delivery. Subway, eat fresh.
For medical lab services in Cayman, go straight to MedLab. Blood test, x-ray, and mammogram, all of that is MedLab. Affordable fees and friendly service, a full professional team. MedLab is always comfortable, MedLab is always clean. For medical lab services in Cayman, MedLab.
Call 949-7331 and ask about MedLab's new state-of-the-art digital mammogram machine.
Make your house into a home. Welcome to Brand Source Home Gallery, your source for premium products and a premium experience. We'll design and install your dream kitchen with crafted cabinets, complemented with elegant appliances. We'll fill it with quality houseware and cookware. Custom-designed closet and storage solutions organize and beautify any area. And with the finest bedding, you'll get a perfect night's sleep knowing Brand Source Home Gallery has everything you need to make your house a home.
Did you know our reefs are home to over 45 different kinds of corals and more than 125 different species of fish? Cayman's amazing coral ecosystems provide so many benefits to our lives. But an aggressive coral disease called stony coral tissue loss disease, or Skittle-D, is making its way around Grand Cayman and threatening our incredible corals. That's why the Department of Environment's Skittle-D response team is hosting Coral Fest at the Grand Caymanian, former Holiday Inn in Safe Haven, on Saturday, November 6th from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. Meet the Skittle-D scientists and learn what makes Cayman's corals so important to us. Bring the kids for coral games, educational booths, and awesome prizes. Entry is free. Email coral@gov.ky or visit doe.ky for more info.
If you or someone in your household is a primary contact to someone who has tested positive for COVID-19, you could be required to isolate at a moment's notice.
Be prepared. Ensure that you have stocked enough food, water, prescriptions, and sanitary items to last for 14 days.
Have a plan if living arrangements require adjustments. And remember that all deliveries must be contactless.
For any queries, contact the 24-hour flu hotline 947-3077 or email flu@hsa.ky. For more tips, visit www.gov.ky/coronavirus.
Oh, Cayman moon.
The voice of the Cayman Islands, Radio Cayman.
Shining down from above.
We love our listeners.
Radio Cayman in the Cayman Islands.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon, welcome back, and thanks to our guests, thanks to our callers. Certainly is a very important topic, and I have to be mindful of the next guest, but also of our current guests having other commitments. So with the greatest of deference to the next two callers, if you could allow me to do something that I'm being cautioned to do more often but will never, let me ask you to, with a spirit of brevity, succinctness, and otherwise, let's get the chat. Hey, good afternoon, welcome, thanks for calling.
Good evening.
Afternoon, how are you?
Yeah, Miss Petrin and the lady there. Good evening.
Yeah,
hello, how are you?
Yeah, you know who it is, right?
I do.
Big Mother Elvis.
Is that on your birth certificate?
Yeah, just like that. Just like that.
All right, sir.
Miss Gina.
Yes, sir.
You know, me and you had our ups and downs over the different issues and the thing, right?
Oh, we have, yes.
But you do a beautiful job. And people are listening to you. A lot of the stuff will be going on now. Now, Miss Gina, do you know one of the greatest weapons that you guys have in your hand now, pertaining like destroying your mango, like how people just tearing on the mango, tearing up the reef, and then after the fact, we stop the developing them. You know the latest tool that you guys have now?
What's that?
Well, you have, when a person kills someone, it is homicide, right?
Right.
When one kills itself, it's suicide. Okay? Now, the United Nations, because I read a lot on this global thing and all that, the United Nations has just passed a word called ecocide.
Yes.
Okay, so, hey, that means if a developer destroys habitat, they can kill your crabs, your fish, whatever, he can be charged at the same thing like murder. Right?
Right.
Well, now I want to ask you this now. Are you guys willing to take that step forward to deal with situation that we going on in Grand Cayman? Hey, it's there now, you know. It's under the United Nations and everybody is into this global. So, would you take the step or talk to our leaders about taking those kind of steps? Rich, like I said, now this coming from Elvis because I know you guys knew it, but I would just want to find out if you're willing to use it. And now, Miss Gina, before I go, I'm not going to be long. I've been waiting 15 minutes to get on. Now we have a new premier that is very into the preserving of things. Could you please ask Mr. Wayne Patton now? Because he's dealing with the ganja. I got a little weed smoking piece. I've been doing that, but with all the money been going on the island. Ask Mr. Green Panton now that nobody on a permit, nobody visiting the Cayman Islands can take our conch, our lobster, our fish. Miss Gina, you know that you can drive around. I think on Facebook where the Filipinos are eating a restaurant, the gargle, the flies out of the place. Who are we protecting this for? The international world? Like that man said a while ago, the one that talked there, we need to start to protect what we have here before we start to protect the world. That's one thing we came on yet. We want to please the world and be frying in the sun. Thank you very much and have a nice day.
All right, Mr. Elvis. Thank you, sir.
Thanks very much, Elvis. As usual, a lot to think about. So I think that we certainly have, as the chief officer has said, we certainly have a minister who cares very deeply about the environment, about sustainability, and about climate resiliency. And it is my hope that we can advance some of these principles in terms of protecting our environment and understanding that it's not about making the environment subservient to everything else, but it is about ensuring that it has equal place at the table in terms when decisions are being made, and that we understand the consequences of the decisions that we take to clear mangroves or allow seagrass beds to be dredged, or to cut channels and reefs, or to do whatever we do to assault the natural environment in ways that are not sustainable.
All right. Well, we'll take this final call for our guests. I mean, there'll be more calls later, but this is the last one for our guests. Hey, good afternoon. Welcome. Thanks for calling.
Good afternoon. It's Alice May Cole.
Afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon, Miss Alice May.
Good afternoon, Miss Gina. And is Miss Jennifer still there too?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Yes,
she
ma'am.
is, ma'am. Good
Keep it
afternoon.
quiet, and of course Sterling Drain and anyone else in listening. I'll be very quick. Speak about the environment, and that is so dear to my heart that every other breath I thinks environment, because the quality of our life depends on how we care for that environment, the very air we breathe, everything else. I won't go into details. Is there any way that we can listen to the COP26 meetings? Is there a link? Is there going to be a way for us to tune into that? Because the great speeches are going on throughout the day and the evening, etc., but we're not always able to. Is there going to be a permanent link that we can go on to YouTube or whatever somewhere along the line?
Yeah, I would imagine that the organizers will make those available. I know that several of the speeches are already available on YouTube. And we mentioned earlier in the show that the UK OTs are hosting Nature Day and having a panel on Saturday morning. And we will be sharing the link for that as well in social media. I think we may have already shared it today. We just received it this morning.
Yeah.
So, but certainly I will make sure to highlight some of those resources as they become available.
Yeah, there's some great talks, Miss Alice May, that will be happening on Saturday. So we have a young student, DJ Lyons, who's going to be speaking as part of a panel.
Mm-hmm.
And then there are other really interesting talks. I personally am going to want to hear the one by Des Gupta, who the Cambridge economist, I think he is, who published a report on biodiversity loss for the UK government, and then Dr. Stern, who published many years ago about the cost of inaction on climate change. So I want to hear that for sure, and obviously DJ. So I'm going to have an early morning, I guess, on Saturday.
Wonderful. That's good to get that. In the meantime, I did catch, I think, Boris Johnson, the Prime Minister of the UK there. He did say it's like 1 minute to midnight.
Yes.
And this is the time that we've got to do something. If you don't do something now, you can sort of kiss our future. And I did hear a little piece from what Her Majesty said, and one little phrase, and maybe I won't get the words correct. It says, what leaders do for their countries today is government and politics, but what they do for tomorrow is statesmanship. And I do hope that the statesmen in the Cayman Islands, and I know Mr. Panton has the right ministry, and Miss Gina, bless your heart, Jennifer, you're there to support them. It's not for lack of trying why our beaches have gone to, hell in a handbasket, and our mangroves have disappeared. It is total disregard for the protection of them. I will keep listening to whatever's going on, and every now and then you'll hear me say something, but it's not that my heart's not in the right place, but I can't be every place all the time. I'd like to be there.
Right.
God bless you all.
Amen.
Keep up the good work. Do not give up. Fight the battle.
Thank you.
Thanks, Miss Alice May.
Thank you very much.
Never give up. Never give up is what Winston Churchill.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Mr. Alice May. God bless. As we close with the discussion, certainly, hopefully, we'll have a continued dialogue, next week, next month, but this afternoon as well, amongst our friends and family around the dinner table to appreciate our impact. In closing, could I ask you, as you share what you want, maybe two things from some of our listeners? One, it says, we talked about the politics and referring to, here's another conference of parties, political leaders agreeing to do something, but this politics. And I'm paraphrasing, there's the civil service machinery here in Cayman, here in other jurisdictions. But what can, if anything, the appointed do, like the civil service, when it's the elected who decide on the policies? And then secondly, we reference planning and maybe the encouraging of energy efficient homes, the building of certain envelopes to reduce our the carbon footprint and the like. One caller referenced something that I know that the late Burns Conley had also shared many times. We go to planning. We want to build a traditional Caymanian home, for instance. We have a covered space, and that covered space is subject to the planning fees and square footage and the like. maybe that is something that we could look at. But just thoughts, and I appreciate those listeners for reminding us of those. So thoughts?
You want to go first, Gina?
Sure. If this is my wrap-up time, I think I would just, to answer those questions, I think there's a lot that the civil service can do. I think that as civil servants, we are the technocrats. We are the people who have, or we ought to have, the information and the expertise to advise our elected officials. I think all too often, though, I have seen civil servants sit back and have information and have technical expertise that they are not putting forward and not sharing because someone hasn't asked them for it. You are a civil servant. You're a servant of the public. And you are also a servant of our political our masters from time to time, they change. But we always serve the public. And I think we have a responsibility to ensure that when there is the level of threat that's posed, for example, by climate change, that we step forward and we give our best recommendations to the political leaders. And it is then up to them. But we shouldn't ever have our elected officials in a position where they don't know something or they weren't aware of something because we failed to tell them and advise them. So I think there's a lot that the civil service can do. I'll leave that there. And just to say that the other thing I will say is that climate change itself is a topic, yes, I think we need to discuss it a lot more amongst ourselves because it is going to impact each and every one of us. This isn't something that's only going to be something for myself and the DOE to address or the Ministry of Sustainability and Climate Resiliency to address. This is going to impact, it's already impacting all of us. And all of us need to be part of the solution.
Yeah, no, I mean, absolutely. I think that it's so important to recognize that we all have a role to play. And, one of the callers' comments or questions about, what is our impact on the global scale in terms of our carbon emissions? It is, in many ways, that our carbon emissions are infinitesimal. They're so tiny, they probably don't register. But the impacts that we are going to have from the effects of climate change and global warming and sea level rise, those are massive. And we need to make sure that we're doing everything that we can to make the right decisions in all that we do every day as individuals, as families, as employers, as a government. It really is, as the Premier's voice note said, it's about the future of and we have to make sure we're taking action to protect it. I think, we talked, especially on Monday, we spent a lot of time talking about the individual things that we can do. And we've touched on a few of them here, but I just think, even though it's so overwhelming, I think it's so important that we all recognize that we can make a difference, that each of us making the right decisions every day will add up to some positive impacts. And David Attenborough spoke at the opening of COP yesterday, and there were two quotes from his speech that I want to share. The first one is that he said, our motivation should not be fear but hope. And I think that one of the problems with fear being the motivation is that you do end up getting paralyzed and you don't know what to do, and so you do nothing. And I think we have to latch on to that hope, and that hope has to be backed up with action. And the other quote that he said that I thought was just so powerful was, he said, if working apart we are forces powerful enough to destabilize our planet, surely working together we are powerful enough to save it.
But this is where I think, action and words, when they collide, can have a positive, meaningful impact that is sustainable. So I'll take license from both of you, for you in particular, Ms. Jen, the offices that you occupy, and use that to encourage and nurture continuing dialogue as a public servant. And maybe, as I was sharing the question really well, are we prepared to make certain things mandatory relative to industry? And not to dictate and to punish, not even necessarily to incentivize, but to do the right thing because it's the right thing. To whom much is given, much is required, they say. I may not be tall and tan, but I certainly can be talented. So let's do just that. Ladies, thank you very much. Publicly, the invitation is to you individually, collectively, to your respective, portfolios, to come on, have this continued dialogue, because it is for our children, but it is for us as we, go post 40.
Exactly.
Think about that. All right.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you very much for having us.
Enjoy the rest of your afternoon. To our listeners, we invite you to join us right after the break. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
Savannah Pharmacy. Shop local and get a head start on your Christmas shopping. For ladies' handbags, clothes, shoes, fragrance, candles, and cosmetics with the newest Farmhouse Fresh line of skincare. For the gentlemen, clothes, shoes, fragrances, gift sets, and toys and games for the kids. Savannah Pharmacy provides you with more than just prescriptions. Remember, they are always just around the corner with everything your family needs. And convenient opening hours, including Sundays and holidays. Savannah Pharmacy. For more information, call 946-3336.
A friendly holiday reminder. You can WhatsApp your Savannah Pharmacy prescription to 929-5045. That's 929-5045.
Are you planning a social, an office party, or event over the holiday season? Make the most of your holiday party and leave the catering to Subway. Choose from small and large sandwich platters, double meat wrap platters, and top it off with optional cookie platters for dessert. Or ask about our Subway Box to Go with the option of a 6-inch or foot-long sandwich, 1 cookie, and 1 bag of chips. Cater your holiday parties with Subway. Visit subway.ky for menu options. Subway. Eat fresh.
For medical lab services in Cayman, go straight to MedLab.
For a full range of medical services, pleasant, clean and comfortable environment, no long lines and affordable fees, visit MedLab at the Smith Road Plaza. Open Monday to Friday, 8:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. and half day on Saturdays. Call 949-7331 to make your appointment.
For medical lab services in Cayman, MedLab.
Ask our professional team about the benefits of cutting-edge technology with MedLab's new state-of-the-art digital mammogram machine.
Join the Cayman Islands National Museum in celebrating their 31st anniversary. Cayman old times are back again.
Cassava cake and cold swanky. That's Cayman.
The Cayman Islands National Museum is pleased to host Look Here, Old Time Days Come Back Again, How We Used to Live. Take a break from 2021 and take a step back into yesteryear. Relive our good old times. Saturday, November 20th, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. We're shutting down Gorn Avenue and Seafarers Way and expect to see all of Cayman there to celebrate. Cayman-style beef, cassava cake, and stew turtle competition in all of our old-time traditions. Platin, rope making, salt fish, making wampas. Bring the kiddos, and don't forget Granny too. Saturday, November 20th from 10 a.m. until 6 p.m. Now that's Cayman.
Cassava cake and cold swanky. That's Cayman. A jupine, a drink, and a beef patty. That's Cayman.
Talk today.
But I do have some questions.
Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waging to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back, and thanks for joining us. It's a wonderful day, Wednesday, and sometimes things unfold and you get to be informed. Well, two familiar faces to the media, two wonderful guests who've graced the studios many times, and Halloween is over, we're still masked, so it's all good. Ladies, thank you very much for allowing me at least to be filled with joy as we have continued discussion, supporting, promoting, and celebrating our arts. Ms. Chisholm, Ms. Matu, always a pleasure. So, good afternoon, and thanks again for coming back in.
Thank you. I think we're making this a weekly slot now, a regular appearance.
We could. I have some fishing to do. I mean,
all right. I will join you with the fishing.
There you go. I'm looking soldiers, so we'll see what happens after that. I got my hand line. It's all good. No, but thank you, especially now that we are sometimes not as mindful of the importance of getting out and socializing, of appreciating that true joy comes from within. The things that we have taken for granted, that we believe we had to spend so much for, is actually accessible, relatively inexpensive. But we just need to make time, which is the most, to me, precious commodity. So, as we share with the listeners, we'll do a 2-part segment, but let's start with the best first.
Sure, yes. Well, we shouldn't say that.
It's exciting. The next segment is going to be super exciting.
Yes, both will be equally exciting. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, so we just wanted to share a little bit about the gallery's involvement with the Museum Association of the Caribbean's annual conference, which is today through the 5th. So it's a 3-day conference, and we're really excited to be participating in this. The theme this year is Cultivating Resilience in Museums and Cultural Heritage Sites. So it's really looking at sort of the way museums have adapted to be spaces of wellness and resilience and healing for their communities, looking at the roles that museums play and kind of defining what museums really are. And then also those roles in inclusion and climate activism, which you just talked about on your show earlier. So we're really excited to be part of this. Both myself and our director, Natalie Urquhart, are going to be presenting. We're thrilled to be participating and thrilled to be involved in something that really encourages regional conversation around museums and around the arts and around culture and around our communities in general.
Mm-hmm. That's important, because I think we don't see it sometimes looking forward. We always can see it looking back. The importance of what museums and national galleries have done, not just preserving, but also at that time encouraging. I can imagine at one point in time, the greats of today were just little fellas batting about the place without anything. What if they didn't have a space? I keep thinking back to the Upper Gallery way back when. What that must have been like just to get into that space. Probably not unlike the Native Sons trying to have a collective somewhere. Very much, in my mind, very much similar. Maybe it'll take centuries for us to appreciate it, but maybe we'll get there.
Sure. I think there's ongoing conversations about what museums are and how we define museums. And I think for a long time, people really thought of museums as a space where there's a lot of old things, a lot of things from the past, which doesn't always connect with everyone. Some people love that. Some people, it's not as engaging for them. But museums are really, at least in my own opinion, are really more about facilitating conversation. And that can be conversation about the past, but it can be conversation about our contemporary moment as well, and about the future and how we imagine our future to look. And that's what this conference, I think, is going to be really great for, is connecting all of these different museum spaces and thinkers around the region, and talking about some of our contemporary issues and what we're feeling and what we're thinking through that museum practice. And then, of course, sort of grappling with the issues of the past, and then imagining what the future looks like.
Yeah, and indirectly it could provoke thought leadership as well. I know we have the news break. I haven't been doing great, the last bit to be compliant with DJ Lynn, but he's not as militant, so he's actually more amenable. So that's great stuff. But after that, we come back a few quick minutes to maybe chat and talk about it, and then we'll take another break and have Auntie V join us for another segment. Good things unfold if you're willing to be a willing participant. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
From district to district, moving through the waters to Cayman Brac and Little Cayman. Your station, your voice. All things Cayman. One radio, many people. This is home.
Radio Cayman in the Cayman Islands.
Today's biggest news.
Radio Cayman. Your voice, your choice.
Local, regional, international. This is Headlines from Radio Cayman's newsroom.
Today's biggest news.
For the week of October 24 to 30, 2021, there was an average of 131 new COVID-19 cases per day.
In an online post, Chief Nursing Officer Dr. Hazel Brown issued the first of what will continue as weekly updates from the Public Health Department on trends observed in COVID-19 data over the prior week. She used the opportunity to urge residents to continue with personal prevention measures. COVID-19 vaccination clinics continue at the Lions Center and Camana Bay locations. In international news, the Israeli company behind the controversial Pegasus spyware has been added to a U.S. trade blacklist. Pegasus has reportedly been used by nation-states to target the phones of rights activists and journalists. The U.S. has now put its maker NSO Group on its entity list, banning business dealings with them. Anger and frustration is replacing the hope of finding survivors at the site of a collapsed residential building in the wealthy neighborhood of Ikoyi in Nigeria's biggest city of Lagos, where at least 20 people died. Officials haven't settled on the number of fatalities, but different versions, just above 20, have been shared. And the Chinese version of hit video game Fortnite is shutting down this month. The game stopped accepting registrations for new players and was no longer available for download as of Monday, that according to a statement on its website. Its servers will be shut down November 15th, meaning players will no longer be able to log into the game. Those are your latest headlines here on Radio Cayman. I'm Shanda Gallego.
For the latest in news and information, Follow Radio Cayman on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Download the Radio Cayman app or log on to our website, radiocayman.gov.ky.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. I truly am reminded when I have days like today and wonderful guests back to back why this job is such a blessing. I get to learn so much. I get to laugh and to share the love. And ladies, thank you, for being so gracious with your time. I know we're looking forward to having Auntie V join us after, but for us, as we're talking about the importance of museums and being champions of cultures, of recording something not just for posterity and preservation, but for being positioned that we are appreciative of what is happening now. Help us to get that perspective.
Going back to what Maya was saying just before we went to the break, is that museums are, when you think about the definition of museums, that there's so many different ways to think about an institution, an art institution, an institution that holds objects. And it's not just, that kind of that idea that we have in the back of our head that it is this dusty old place that, has like cabinets. But it is a
That's
space.
Just a staff.
Yeah.
In other jurisdictions.
It is not a dusty old place. Yeah.
But there's so many things that do happen within museum spaces. There's so many different ways that we can utilize them, and that's one of the reasons why we're really excited to talk about the Museum Association. The MAC conference of the Museum Association of the Caribbean, their annual conference, is because that's one of the things that they champion, is thinking about how different museums within the Caribbean, how we operate, because we're so different. Because you have museums that talk about kind of cultural history in a very specific way that is, it might be an outdoor museum, or you have a place like the National Gallery that is more of a contemporary art museum. And one of the things that MAC has done, so the Museum Association of the Caribbean, is to collaborate with so many different partners. So they have worked with the Smithsonian in the US, they've worked with UNESCO, with the International Council of Museums, as well as the European Union for Latin America and the Caribbean Foundation, thinking about how do we create resources for our communities, how do we create opportunities to connect, thinking about trainings for museum professionals or trainings for our community to access the wealth of knowledge that museums do carry.
And that's where it is, we sometimes don't appreciate that wealth that is there. And it may be because we have created within ourselves this misconception, not necessarily a perception, that it's not accessible. It is not for now. It's for that thing later on as a reference. But it's a living, breathing entity that we can embrace.
Yeah, I think the knowledge that museums carry is sometimes just a reflection of the knowledge that we as a community carry. I think one of the things that I've really learned working in museum education is that sometimes it's not just about what I can tell the community. It's not just about what I can teach the students who are coming in on a tour. It's about what they can teach me. It's about what they want to see in a museum space, how they feel their community is reflected in the space, and what we can learn as museum professionals from them. And that's why this kind of dialogue through a conference like this is so critical for this industry, but just to chat together as a community about what our experience is in the Caribbean as a region, and then of course as a smaller Caymanian community.
And I think as I listen to you, as we close our discussion, it's imperative that we start to be the contributors, that we start to acknowledge that it's an evolving landscape, as it were. And so what is now captured, collated, and sometimes treasured will inform successive generations. So that thing needs to be authentic. Through dialogue and discussion, we may get to a space where there is meaningful decisions.
Yeah. And if you do want to tune in, this is something that the general public can tune in on. So you can go to caribbeanmuseums.com/MacCon. So that's MACCON 2021. And there's different kinds of registration options. The conference starts this afternoon and it goes through the 5th. So there's going to be some really incredible speakers on talking about everything that you can imagine in the Caribbean region, from different educational opportunities for Taino and Indigenous peoples to what we're talking about, which is our wellness program, and also the ways that we've adapted our educational programming digitally for this moment. So there's going to be some really, really engaging and amazing speakers. So I do encourage people to log on to that website and find out more.
And one of the things, the National Gallery is really proud to be a sponsor and to be collaborating with the Museum Association of the Caribbean. And we've kind of been in different capacities collaborating with them since 2016, whether that's through planning committees or hosting. So we hosted a conference here in 2016, but it's very much a rich resource that we would encourage the public to tap into. And there's kind of, as Maya was saying, there's a lot of different things that you can take, regardless of where you come from, what angle you come from. And the National Gallery will be leading the wellness sections each morning. So
yes. So Janine Martins, who is a yoga instructor that works with us on our wellness program, will be doing a yoga session on the morning of the 5th. And Mirabel D'Acunha will be doing a meditation on tomorrow morning. So we're really excited to be sponsoring that portion of the conference as well.
You know what? Wellness, the body, the mind, the spirit, the soul, keeps us all grounded and excited and positioned for great things to come. So thank you both for being so amenable with your time, for yielding early, and certainly for being so informative now. And looking forward to maybe some of those wellness sessions.
Yes.
Thank you so much for having us.
Always a pleasure. Looking forward to future discussions. And now to our listeners, a quick early break. When we come back, Auntie V, as I call her, as all will eventually. She's going to join us. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
We may be in Christmas shopping mode, but 'tis the flu season too. Savannah Pharmacy has immune system boosters for the entire family with a range of vitamins and supplements. Their knowledgeable and courteous pharmacists are always available to offer the best advice and products. Remember, they are always just around the corner with everything your family needs and convenient opening hours, including Sundays and holidays. Savannah Pharmacy. For more information, call 946-3336.
A friendly holiday reminder. You can WhatsApp your Savannah Pharmacy prescription to 929-5045. That's 929-5045.
For medical lab services in Cayman, go straight to MedLab.
For a full range of medical services, pleasant, clean and comfortable environment, no long lines and affordable fees, visit MedLab at the Smith Road Plaza. Open Monday to Friday, 8:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. and half day on Saturdays. Call 949-7331 to make your appointment.
For medical lab services in Cayman, MedLab.
Ask our professional team about the benefits of cutting-edge technology with MedLab's new state-of-the-art digital mammogram machine.
Explore your history. Explore your land. Explore your sister islands, the ultimate staycation experience. Your culture, your freedom, the land that time forgot isn't gone. It's your sister islands.
Discover all that our sister islands have to offer.
At Subway, we caramel a lot about our customers, so we decided to give you 2 treats in one with the new Caramel Apple Cookie. Enjoy cinnamon apples, caramel bits, and salted caramel crunch baked in, and topped with a drizzle of caramel-flavored icing. Gooey, crunchy, and yummy. Complete your Subway sandwich, pizza, or salad with the delicious Caramel Apple Cookie or any other cookie flavor and dessert, available for a limited time at all Subway locations. Subway, eat fresh.
The Cayman Islands Chamber of Commerce Pension Plan. We're here for you. We are a non-for-profit member-centric plan with a democratically elected volunteer board of trustees representing all sectors of the Cayman Islands economy. Chamber Pension has an all-in expense ratio of 0.72%, over 16,000 members, $430 million in assets under management. We were the first multi-employer pension plan approved by the regulator in the late 1990s. And today, we are still strong, secure, and are here for employees and employers alike. If you would like to join or request further information, visit chamberpension.ky. And for information as it happens, follow us on Facebook, LinkedIn, or Instagram. Email admin@pensions.ky or call 745-7630. The Cayman Islands Chamber of Commerce Pension Plan. We're here for you.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back, and thanks for joining us. And it's always a pleasure to be able to focus on the arts and to be able to showcase such wonderful talent that is within our shores. So, together with the collections crew at the National Gallery within Hereford, we have the wonderfully gifted Miss Virginia Foster in our studio.
Who can't fix her mic properly?
You can't. Don't worry about that, Mom. I wonder about mine sometimes. But, yeah, and those headsets I use them to keep my hair in place. But if you don't want, you can take them off, Miss V. Don't worry about that. Or whatever's comfortable. Now, as you get settled, and we'll start with you first. Good afternoon, and thanks very much. Pleasure to coming on board again and being the chaperone.
Yeah, well, she doesn't need one, but I'm her special assistant with this exhibition. So
the envoy. But. Miss Virginia, it is sometimes for us, not just refreshing, but we're, increasingly surprised at your immense talents, the pool of wealth you have from storytelling to education to crafting to everything. And now to appreciate that, to me, pottery and working with clay, sadly, too many of us either think to that movie with those two individuals in the song playing and one behind the other and the wheel spinning. For me, it's more of he's like thinking back. I know you're young; you'll get there eventually. For me, it's going to some museums of the past, even in Florida, and seemingly are being shown things that are centuries and sometimes thousands of years old that came from Egypt, as archaeologists were uncovering, a little bit shards of clay and this, and to appreciate that it is an entity or a medium that has been around for a long time, almost as long as DJ Lynn on TV. So to you, Mom, good afternoon. Share with us, as we asked, Will to maybe give us a perspective from the curator, but working in
I think
clay.
Will should talk first.
You should? Okay, all right. Fine.
Okay.
You know what? With that in mind, hey, I'm not going to stand in the way.
Well, we were on Radio Cayman earlier this week, but for those who missed that segment,
it's on YouTube.
I just wanted to maybe introduce this exhibition that we're talking about, because Miss Virginia's been around for a long time. She's very well known, of course, in the community for these different hats that she's worn, different roles that she's played as a cultural historian and as a storyteller and as an educator herself. But we're here today to talk about her work as an artist, as a ceramicist. And this is something she's been, she came to, I would say in the 1980s, when you first were at Red Bay Primary School or slightly later. But she's honed her craft over several years, and now with this exhibition, it's really the culmination of this long career she's had. And we wanted to celebrate her and her work at the National Gallery, and to honor the contributions she's made to Caymanian society in all of those different capacities. And this exhibition, it was originally intended to coincide with her 70th birthday, and with the lockdowns and the pandemic, we had to postpone it. And so
her birthday or the exhibition?
Both.
Well,
she had her birthday, but she had another birthday this year, of course, and it was just a fitting occasion to celebrate her and to share this side of her life, her career with friends and family and members of the public. So for this exhibition, we've selected quite an assortment of her ceramic pieces. Some might be familiar for those who've already been to the National Gallery and seen her work upstairs in the National Collection, but a lot of this is actually new work. It's work she's made in the last 2 or 3 years. And it's a beautiful assortment of earthenware, different mediums and different types of ceramic pieces. And a lot of it, which is the story we really wanted to tell with this exhibition, it's deeply, deeply rooted in Caymanian history and culture. And so a lot of the forms, even if they're not literal or immediately apparent what it is you're looking at, they've got this resonance, this sort of very evocative quality that speaks to the land and the sea and maritime history and all these other elements of culture.
And before we ask Ms. Virginia, we'll just quickly, the exhibition is ongoing now. To how long?
So the exhibition is running until the 18th of November. So we have about 2 more weeks. And the National Gallery is open Monday to Saturday, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. And if you come on Saturday, and we've had a lot of rainy weather recently, so it's kind of perfect for a museum day, Miss Virginia is going to be giving tours. So you can actually hear from her, hear from the artist directly, and she'll guide you around. She's always very, very patient and very, very excited to share her work with others. So if you come from 2 p.m. onwards on Saturday, that's the coming Saturday, the 6th of November, or the week after on the 13th, you'll get a private tour with Miss Virginia.
Wonderful way to introduce you, Miss Virginia. And as I listen to Will, we reflect on you, just as a guest, sometimes speaking about issues that would be under your umbrella, but things that are passionate to you, and the storytelling is evident. Now to see it sort of unfold in a form like ceramics in particular, wow, it's allow us to touch, but also to be able to sense the importance. So thank you again.
and each piece has a story. So the title of the exhibit is Wonders of Clay, Perfectly Imperfect. And each piece is going to be has been dedicated to a woman in my life who has impacted my life, who has enriched my life. And so I thought I would start by sharing a few pieces. I did so at the earlier time, was it when we were on?
Monday.
Monday, yeah, on for the record. So as Will said, I started earlier with numerous pieces, and I've been giving them away to friends and relatives, and I have so many pieces now that I thought, okay, I can't live with all of these pieces in my little tiny cottage, so I'm going to dedicate each piece to a woman who has enriched my life. This one is stamped V. Foster 2019, because that was the year leading into 2021 that we were supposed to have the exhibit. And this one is called Thumbprints on Time. So each of these little indents was made by my thumb. And when I was thinking about it, I thought, who had a lasting thumbprint on Cayman time? So this is dedicated to Mrs. Connolly, past education officer, who actually recruited me from Belize to come out here as a teacher.
Mrs. Connolly.
So yes, Mrs. Lee. She doesn't know anything about it, but she'll get it sooner or later.
But when I saw it, I see a mother in womb. To me, for some reason, I can see the very strength of femininity in it. And I can see, mother and child.
Well, a lot of my pieces, because they're dedicated to women, are I try to infuse each with some beauty. And I also am aware very much of the fact that these are women, and she is quite an outstanding woman. She deserves to be a national hero in my estimation. This one is dedicated to all of my teachers, especially my very first teacher, Miss Vargas. She had a private nursery school in Belize, and I had to wait an extra year so that my sister and I could both begin school at the same time. And somewhere along the line, it was announced that Miss Vargas had died. So my mother dressed us in our uniforms and took us past to go and pay our respects. And when we went to our house, we found out it was a different person that had died. So that made a lasting impression on me. I guess I might have been maybe 6, or I can't remember, 5, and my sister would have been 4. So this is a piece too that it's a piece of raku, which I am extremely passionate about, because you never know what you're gonna get. Never. And Alan Darville is a person who has helped me most with raku pieces. So Alan, keep your ears out for my next exhibit, because those pieces will be dedicated to the men in my life. This one is stoneware. I don't do a lot of stoneware because it requires very high temperatures in the kiln, higher than what we can do at the VAS studio. So these were supposed to get refired at a higher temperature, but it didn't happen. So these are a stack of plates, and it's entitled Hospitality, and it's dedicated to a very close friend of mine who is known for her hospitality. She and her husband, and they invite me every New Year's Eve to this big community celebration, and she is the gourmet cook. So hospitality at its best.
Yeah, I think this is, as I listen to you, we see the honesty, but we see the humility in your work, but we see the appreciation of what it is. Our lives are shaped and fostered many times by the events and by the people. And thankfully, someone like you brings us to a space where we start to reflect on it in such a way, and that we can see the thumbprints.
And realize that it's not only the fantastic women who kept the island afloat during the maritime years,
right,
but there are some extremely remarkable women in today's society.
And I think this is where we need to reflect on what is Cayman, and who is it that's making and shaping Cayman. And when I love the library, I share with the staff, the sudden passing of Paul and the like. And I go into that space because it is not only the repository of knowledge, sort of like your bowl. As I looked at it, I thought, that's not a candy bowl, that's a bowl of wisdom. Did not know the story, but just seeing it, the jagged edges with the smooth exterior, as it were. And that statue right in the center of the town, to the women, I would say that could be 1 million feet high and 1 million feet wide. It still would not be big enough to truly show the respect and appreciation and the value, the worth of our women.
And raku is so natural. It's not fired in an electric kiln, and this glaze is all minerals, and so a piece of mud, but going back into the earth, coming out of the earth. And this is where these teachers are coming from, all over the world, to Cayman, with their experiences and their passion and their love for what they do.
I think when I was looking at that, and as you were sharing, I think the Cayman night, it's a Dolomite, but what's on the back is different from what's on Grand Cayman, and how maybe for the longest of time we never had the sufficient respect for it as we toss it about the place. This might help us to be appreciative of what we are, and will as a curator, you're bringing together something that gives us an opportunity for a smidgen to appreciate through a lens what is obviously something that's evident but evidently ignored oftentimes.
And to give the work the platform it deserves. So we're very blessed in Cayman to have a national museum, to have a cultural foundation for the performing arts, and also the National Gallery. And I think it's shown with Miss Virginia's work. Even she would acknowledge there's a sense of pride, when your work is exhibited in the National Gallery. I think it helps the artists see themselves differently. I know another one of our great artists, Horacio Esteban, who's a master of Caymanite, right?
Students, by the way.
Yeah. He said the same, how I guess it's an acknowledgement from the community that an artist has made something of themselves and is deserving of public recognition for the work they do, which is not always as feted as, we have people in industry and real estate and maybe other sectors of our economy which get more attention. And I think it's a reminder, Miss Virginia's exhibition is, of the importance of culture and heritage, preserving that culture at a time when perhaps it's under threat, or it's something that people don't prize as much as they probably should. So that's really what the National Gallery's mission is about, and giving a voice to these artists who, for us on the curating side or on the gallery side, the artist is the person whose voice we're really trying to promote, but I think we can help shape the story around their work. And we've got other cultural figures that are being celebrated now as well. I know Miss Virginia might say a few words about Miss Lassie and the Mind's Eye project.
Yes, we're busy putting the final touches on to her fantastic retrospective exhibit at the Education Center, which is the duplex immediately behind Miss Lassie's house. And the opening is tomorrow, so please, dear Lord, we need good weather. Yes, and then following the opening, which is by invitation only tomorrow, beginning Friday morning and into the 13th, we'll be doing daily tours. So we open to the public, I think it's at 10, and we go till 6. And during that time, we will have set times when we do guided tours. Other than that, you just walk in. It's all free. You walk in, you see all these many beautiful paintings by Miss Lassie. And then you can take a peek inside her house, which is some 140-something years at this time. And of course, she's a fourth-generation internationally renowned artist. Visionary, intuitive. At the height of her work, she was the only significant woman in the Caribbean recognized as an intuitive artist, visionary. So Cayman has its own claim to fame, and it's through Miss Lassie's little tiny humble cottage there at South Sound is on the list, the World Watch Monument list, along with Wall of China and the Leaning Tower in Paris. I mean, fantastic for us, fantastic for Cayman.
So many times, I think we're overlooking the treasures that lie within. We're not as appreciative of what we have, and partly because you see something and you never really take time to look at it. People are talking, but who's listening? Maybe it's a good time to ask DJ Lynn to look for that song by the Simon and Garfunkel, The Sound of Silence. Maybe that'll be the song.
Oh, I love that song.
We may play that at the end of the program if it's available. I do recognize the time, and I'm certainly very appreciative of not just you making yourselves available to come on with the OC on Monday, but here as well, and sharing with us now as we get to the wind-up stage.
Well, thank you, because you're an international renowned voice there, so it's our honor to be here with you.
You see this young lady? I tell you why. There's only one other person that really lifts my spirits. You're such a blessing, Miss Virginia. Such a blessing.
Thank you.
No, well, this, as you shared, as you sort of offer up your final thoughts, and then maybe again to Miss Virginia. A few days from now, this exhibition will be down. The opportunity to be guided for a stand, whether this Saturday or the next, by Miss Virginia, isn't something that we should look at lightly, but to see, touch, and be sort of promoted in a sense within the spirit. It's important. So, closing thoughts, Will?
Well, just to re-extend that invitation to come and see this work in person. We've got 2 weeks left of the show. We're running until the 18th of November, and as I said, it's an opportunity to see this in the flesh, this work that's so important. But we're very conscious that there are concerns. So we've got all of our protocols in place, health and safety protocols. There's a lot of opportunity in the gallery for these moments of silence that I think are really important to appreciate work, have that sort of almost meditative time to yourself, and to see this great work. And we've also done a lot of work on digital initiatives. So one of the things that I think for me is great with Miss Virginia's project is we've got this catalog that we've been able to publish, so people will have that as a sort of legacy of this exhibition. And also on our website, we've put a lot of photographs of Miss Virginia's work, videos of her speaking. So we're trying to create this kind of digital archive so that children or visitors online can experience the work, at least in the digital space for the weeks and months after the exhibition comes down.
Indeed. Well, this is important, and I'm glad that we are doing it.
So many relatives and family and friends abroad. So this is their way of they'll be looking at you too. I'm going to make sure they know that you were here.
Well, I always tell people, it shouldn't be death that scares you. It should be living a life in vain. So make it matter, make it count. And you're making yours matter. So God may grant you, many decades to come with that presence of mind and the health and strength.
Okay, Sterling, if you don't show up on one of those Saturdays, I'm not coming back ever. You've already been in my little black book several times.
I'll tell you something after this, and then you'll say, oh, he's forgiven.
All right.
Fair enough, right? Well, thank you very much, Mom. Thank you so much for coming in. Looking forward to seeing you on Saturday. All right. That is today. Tomorrow is another day as we invite you to be a part of a discussion, and we're always grateful, honored, and privileged to be a part of this. Until tomorrow, be blessed.
Talk Today is brought to you by Subway, open 24 hours in Countryside, Anderson Square in Georgetown, and Centennial Towers in West Bay. And by the Ministry of District Administration, Tourism and Transport. Explore your history, explore your land, explore your sister islands. MedLab in Smith Road Plaza, your complete medical laboratory solution. Call 949-7331. And Savannah Pharmacy in Countryside Shopping